Welcome to this video about the business life cycle. You may also hear this being referred to as the industry life cycle. There are 5 stages in the life cycle. You typically see the industry life cycle or business life cycle broken down into 2 axes, an X and a Y. On the Y-axis, you typically see value creation on the Y. On the X-axis, you have the passage of time. The industry life cycle refers to the evolution of an industry or business through 5 stages. Sometimes it's shown as 4 stages. The stages are as follows: startup or introduction, followed by growth, followed by shakeout, next is maturity, and finally is decline. Now let's talk about these one by one. Let's talk about the introduction stage. The introduction stage, we see slow growth due to high prices and unfamiliarity of those coming into the space. You typically see this graph, depending on the industry, starting off from the left at the bottom and climbing up. So let's start this graph as follows. Somewhere around here, we'll make this a different color to make it as visible as possible. So we see an incline when you get into the growth stage, and then shakeout, and then maturity. Maturity has a little bump that you see as it gets to the highest peak, and then decline. And this is a rough approximation. It depends on a number of factors, but this is the overall idea. So let's talk about them one by one. Again, the business stage, the first stage is introduction. Some people could refer to that as launch. So it's the beginning where the company launches its operations, launches the new products, the new services. And during the launch phase, or the introduction phase, if you call it that, revenue is low and initial startup costs are high. In fact, throughout the entire business life, the profit life cycle lags. The second one is growth. In the growth phase, companies experience rapid sales growth. You see that incline of the graph over there. The growth stage is where rapid growth is experienced. However, as the profit life cycle still lags behind the sales cycle, the profit level is not as high as sales. And finally, the cash flow during the growth phase becomes positive. Moving on to the next one, we have the shakeout phase. During the shakeout phase, sales continue to increase, but at a slower pace. So it begins to even out, somewhat. It's typically not as sharp an incline. So I'll adjust this slightly to show that rapid incline there, and then it evens out. Then we get to maturity, and then we begin to decline. You'll see a few examples of this. For those students who I am coaching, refer to your PowerPoint presentation for a very accurate depiction of this curve. The next one we have is the 4th phase, and this is maturity. When businesses mature, sales begin to decrease slowly. You can see a decrease is coming at that point. It's important to note, though, that many businesses extend their business life cycle during this phase by reinventing themselves, having programs that give a new lease on life for products that already existed, investing in new technologies and markets. Last but not least, we have decline. As you can see, there's a decline there in terms of the value creation. In this final stage, sales, profit, and cash flow, they all decline. And during this phase, companies generally accept their failure to extend their business life cycle by adapting to and changing the environment, and firms lose their competitive advantage and they may actually exit the market. If there's no additional innovation forthcoming, it could be quite a very unfortunate phase. For many companies, they may go over to new products or they may just get out of the marketplace. All right, so the top of the waves one more time as you prepare for your final exam. Be aware that in the introduction, there are few firms. The key issues in introduction, we have slow growth going on, right? Price unfamiliarity, high prices and unfamiliarity. In the growth stage, prices fall, yet all firms thrive. The key issues, dominant designs begin to emerge. Firms find competitive positions. The shakeout stage, there's fierce competition and prices fall. Weak firms will be forced to exit. There could be the arrival of a dominant design. Winners are often those with leadership from the cost perspective and specialized assets suited to dominant design. Firms without clear strategic position will be in trouble in shakeout. They usually collapse at that point. The maturity stage, the key thing you need to take note of as you prepare for your finals is that industry leaders work to improve profitability at this stage. There's not as steep an incline, but this is really where the peak is. In the maturity stage, there's a focus on low costs and there's increased barriers to entry at that point. The decline stage, finally, this is where companies often search for incremental efficiencies and leading firms may compete in different wars. But the decline stage is where you begin to see less value creation. And that is it. There you have it, also known as the industry life cycle or the business life cycle. See you in the next video.